So Star Wars The Mandalorian Season 2 has come and gone now. Unfortunately, it's over with. Did I already spoil what this video is going to be about? I think I just did. Anyways, the point of this video is I want to talk about just what I saw out of Star Wars The Mandalorian Season 2. Because so far, as of late, it's the only good Star Wars that we've been getting. And that's both, I guess, good and bad, because it's been pretty fantastic. But I'm hoping that in the future, this can be kind of a springboard for the rest of the Disney Star Wars projects to be at the same level, if not even better, than The Mandalorian. But for this video, I want to talk about Season 2 of The Mandalorian, what I thought about it, give it a review, give it a final score, and move on from there. So, if you guys go on to enjoy this video, be sure to hit the like button. Let me know your review in the comments down below. Are there episodes that you enjoyed more than others? What did you think? Let me know. I'd like to hear in the comments down below. But let's go ahead and get into this video. So first off, I just want to start by saying that overall, I absolutely loved and adored Season 2 of The Mandalorian. I thought it was absolutely fantastic. And really, I haven't had a show that I could look forward to every week since Game of Thrones. And, I mean, we all know how the last season of Game of Thrones was. I'm going to be honest, I actually did enjoy the last season. I know I'm not in the majority there, but I did. But the point is that since Game of Thrones ended, I haven't had a show to look forward to every week and actually have something good come from it. So far, The Mandalorian has been the only show since Game of Thrones to do that for me. And the good news is that it's been fantastic. Every single episode from this season was satisfying completely to me. I had really very minimal issues with any of the episodes in this season. There was one episode that I had some issues with, and I'll get to that in a moment, but I just want to tell you overall, I absolutely loved this season of The Mandalorian. So that's the TLDR. If you want to skip to my score review, that'll be after what I go ahead and talk about right now, which is the individual episodes. I just want to give a little bit of my thoughts, just a little bit of thoughts on each of the individual episodes, and then we'll get to the final score and review. Now, I will admit that I did have to go online and actually look up the information about who directed and everything for these episodes, because 8 weeks actually is a little bit more time than you'd think. So don't judge me as far as that's concerned. So for episode 1, we have The Marshal, and this one is directed by Jon Favreau. And here's the thing. Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni are the best thing to happen to Star Wars in recent memory. After the failures of the most recent Star Wars saga films, these two guys have really come in and laid the groundwork for what should be Star Wars moving forward. And I'm telling you right now, The Marshal set the tone for the rest of the season. Probably one of my favorite parts of the season was the initial entry part of that episode, where the Mandalorian and Grogu, as we find out later in the season, are walking through this dark, desolate region, and it really gives me Western vibes. This whole episode actually gives me the Western vibes, and a lot of really interesting things happen in this episode as well. I mean, the Boba Fett armor, right, that was being worn by the Marshal in the town that they went to, what was that? You know, and that right there actually set the tone for what we would later see later on in what was the episode that we saw that for? In episode 6, when we actually met Boba Fett, right? So, really big deal. I love that episode. It was fantastic. Now, in episode 2 of season 2, we got the infamous Frog Lady and her eggs that Grogu may have eaten a few, and the internet kind of went bonkers about it. Let's be honest, it's a TV show, okay? It's not real life. It doesn't really matter. So if you're one of those people that gets super upset about that, just do me a favor and take a chill pill, okay? Like, let's just take a chill pill, okay? It's just a show. But either way, actually what really freaked me out the most about this episode was not Grogu eating the babies. It was the dang spiders. Now, I will say, this is actually probably one of my favorite episodes because of the scenery that they were in. They were in this completely ice-frozen place. And for me, I love shows and movies and things like that are in that. I'm a big fan of snow and ice and stuff like that. It just looks really cool. So I loved the overall aesthetic for this episode. But as soon as I got to the dang spiders are literally my mortal enemy. I genuinely hate spiders with a burning, seething rage. And I'm terrified of them. So this episode gave me the heebie-jeebies. Now, episode 3, we actually got some really cool things. We actually met Bo-Katan and the rest of the Mandalorian and her little group for the first time. And this was actually a really big deal because up to this point, we had never met new Mandalorians outside of the original group of them that were with Mando in season 1. This is the first time we've seen outside Mandalorians meet up with Mando himself. And that was a big deal because Mando's perspective on being a Mandalorian is very different than the other ones, Bo-Katan speaking. They have no problem removing their helmet versus Mando, which has a huge problem removing his helmet. That was a very interesting thing to go over in this episode, and I really enjoyed it. Also, I do just want to take a second and let you know, I have my cat and my roommate's cat in my room right now, so if you hear any little bells going back and forth, it's them back there playing. Now, episode 4, this was a really fun episode, and one of those aesthetic episodes that I actually really, really liked. Mando went back to meet his good old friends Cara Dune and Greef Karga. I had to look that up right there. Greef Karga. I only know him as Carl Weathers. I don't think I've even actually heard his name in the episodes. They might have mentioned it, but I just don't remember. But anyways, and here's the thing. We met the infamous Bluefin character from the very first episode of Season 1 of The Mandalorian. We met him again. Apparently he's doing just fine, but he's under Greef Karga's thumb. You know, he's kind of being smushed down there. He's being toyed with, which I found rather humorous in this episode, and I also kind of felt a little bit bad, but at the same time not bad at all. I mean, it is what it is, right? Now, the next episode in the series, Season 2, was episode 5. And this was the episode that everyone was waiting for, because really, if you look at the Mandalorian as a whole, so far, holistically, what has been the whole point and the whole reason for anything that's happened? Well, it's been the Mando trying to get Grogu to someone of his kind, aka a Jedi that can take Grogu under their wing, help them, take care of them, and train them. And this was the culmination of all of that. In this episode, episode 5, we met Ahsoka Tano for the first time on the big screen. She's obviously been in the Clone Wars, and that's where everybody knows her, but this was the first time that we've seen her on the big screen, and man, it was freaking cool. I'm just gonna let you know right now, I'm not a watcher of the Clone Wars. I know that's heresy, trust me, I'm well aware. It's not that I don't like the Clone Wars, it's just, I've never sat down to watch it, and I know that I probably should fix that, and maybe I could fill in my void of Star Wars with the Clone Wars. Maybe that's a good idea, actually. Maybe I'll do that and I'll start talking about what I see from the Clone Wars. But anyways, moving on, Ahsoka Tano in this episode was absolutely amazing. She was if you think about it, she's the first exploration of the Jedi in this show. This show is in the Star Wars universe, but they don't really think or worry about the space wizards that much. It's really about the down and dirty people in the show. And this was the first venture that we had into the Jedi, and it was fantastic. Grogu and Ahsoka Tano met, but then the interesting thing is that Ahsoka Tano actually denied taking care of Grogu, which I found very curious. It goes on to be for a reason, and we'll get to that here later. But basically, my point is that episode was fantastic. I love Ahsoka Tano. I can't wait for her own show, which will be coming out here in the next couple of years. Episode 6, we have Boba Fett finally showing himself in completion on the show. Now, there had been rumors about him showing up and questions about where he was and things like that up to this point, especially, like I said, in episode 1, how the Marshal was wearing Boba Fett's armor, and we finally got our full answer this time around when we actually saw Boba Fett for the first time, and Boba Fett met the Mando. This episode was crazy because we not only met Boba Fett, we also met the Dark Troopers for the first time. Now, here's what I will also say. I did have one issue with this episode. And it's actually interesting because I definitely think that I'm on the contrary of most other people in this subject. I haven't heard anyone else complain about this, but I will. This episode was directed by Robert Rodriguez, and there was a lot of action in this episode. Lots of battles and shooting and just lots and lots of action, which was cool. I personally, though, did not like the direction of this episode. They used a lot of quick cuts during the action sequence to give off this vibe of intensity. I just didn't like it. It felt jarring. It felt weird. I really did not like it that much. Now, I loved the action, and I loved, what actually happened in the episode and why there was action and things like that. I love that. It's just the way that it was shot, I was not a fan of. And to be honest with you, I'm not usually a person to critique those things, but I was in this episode. So keep that in mind. That's really the only issue that I have with this season of The Mandalorian, so I just did not like how that episode was shot. Now we're going to go into episode 7, and this episode is actually pretty fantastic because Bill Burr came back and reprised his role as Mayfield, and to be quite honest with you, he kind of stole the show. Mayfield is a fantastic character, and I want to say that I want to see more of him, but at this point I feel like we've really just reached the climax with Mayfield's character. I think everything that we have seen from him has been fantastic, and this episode was a culmination of all of that. And really the big thing that's important about Mayfield is he can talk. His talking, the dialogue in this episode was really fantastic. Mayfield trying to talk to Mando was something that we really hadn't seen before, because Mando doesn't really talk all that much, and what he does say is pretty cut and dry, but Mayfield is not really like that. He'll talk a lot, and he'll talk in depth, and that was pretty fantastic to experience. Lots of action in this episode, but lots of dialogue. I am thoroughly satisfied with the Mayfield character, and if they retire him at this point and we don't see him again, I would be satisfied with what we've seen from him. Okay, now we get into the last episode, which was phenomenal and surprising and amazing. So, spoiler alert, I really liked this episode. Just jumping straight into it, Luke Skywalker is back in Star Wars, and this time he's back in the right way. I am not a fan of The Last Jedi by any means. I really think that they did Luke Skywalker a disservice with the way that they wrote that episode of the Star Wars saga. But this time, Luke Skywalker was done right. If you look at the parallels between Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader in Rogue One, that's something super freaking cool to pay attention to. Look at the scenes. Compare them. Look at them in parallel. It's pretty awesome. They finally showed Luke Skywalker being the master, the Jedi master that he is. But the thing is we've never really been able to see Luke in that way up until now. Now, they did use the deep fake sort of CGI on the face. The lips are a little bit weird to me. He did still look a little off, but I think they did a really good job with what they were able to do. And, I was thinking that they should have recast Luke, but honestly, I'm satisfied with this. The only question that brings up is if they have Luke Skywalker back on the show in the future, how are they going to do it? Are they going to do it this way again? Because I feel like it might be a little difficult to continue to do the CGI that way. Now, who knows what they're actually going to do? We'll find out in the future. Obviously, they've got a lot of Star Wars coming up here soon, but all in all, I think they did a fantastic job with Luke in this episode. This episode from start to finish was fantastic, and I think it's the only episode of the season that I've rewatched a couple of times now, actually. The Darksaber with Moff Gideon, amazing. Just really, really cool. And it shows that Moff Gideon, he's not a Sith. He's not a trained person in lightsabers or darksabers. Really, the only reason why he has it is to just keep Bo-Katan from having it, for the most part. He tried fighting the Mando, and it didn't work. He lost, because Mando is obviously a better fighter than Moff Gideon is. However, that fight was really interesting, but what made it even more interesting was the Dark Troopers, because we had seen the Dark Troopers previously, but we hadn't really known all that much about what they were capable of until this episode, and this episode showed what the Dark Troopers can do. Just one of them can decimate you, let alone an entire platoon of them that they were about to get destroyed by in the ending part of this episode until Luke showed up. And that also just emphasizes how fantastic Luke was. So basically what I'm saying is that the Dark Troopers were great, Moff Gideon was great, the Darksaber was great, everything was great. The only thing is, now Bo-Katan does not have the Darksaber, the Mandalorian has the Darksaber, so what is that going to mean in the next season? That's the question. That is the million-dollar question, and that's probably what they're going to end up exploring throughout Season 3 of The Mandalorian, is the connection between the two. So I'm really curious to see what actually happens with that. Alright, I've talked long enough about each of these episodes and my thoughts on everything. Listen, here's the thing. All in all, I absolutely adored Season 2 of The Mandalorian. And I'm just going to come out and give my final score. My final score for Season 2 of The Mandalorian will be a 9.5 out of 10. It would be a 10, but I just don't... like I said before, I did not like the way that the episode of Boba Fett was shot. I didn't like it. I really, really didn't like it. That's the only gripe that I have with this season, though. A 9.5 out of 10, I think, is pretty fantastic, especially when we're coming from The Last Jedi, Rise of Skywalker, Solo, some really lackluster ventures into Star Wars. The Mandalorian is single-handedly keeping Star Wars afloat. And it's pretty much, I think, completely changed the entire direction that the series was supposed to go on when it came under Disney. Remember, they had so many films planned? But then when the films started failing, but then The Mandalorian took off, now here we are, and we've got a ton of shows that are coming up, which I'm super, super excited about. I'm going to be making some videos talking about Obi-Wan's series, because Obi-Wan is my favorite character in the Star Wars universe, so I'm going to be talking about that here soon, so stay tuned for that if you'd like to see it. But that's going to cut it for this video. I hope you guys have listened to me ramble and enjoyed it, and if you have, hit the like button. Let me know in the comments down below what your thoughts on The Mandalorian Season 2 was. What do you think? Do you think differently than me? I'd really love to know. So let me know in the comments, and subscribe for more. I don't know when the next video is going to be, but if you want to find out when that is, the best way to do that is to subscribe and hit the bell. But anyways, guys, that does it for me today. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.